Okay, so now once we have this basic back and forth strum, once we're swinging it a little bit, we're really ready to add a whole bunch of techniques to alter this strum a little bit to create some complex rhythms. The first, I guess the simplest way of altering it is just to skip a strum. In fact, now that I think back, the way I was just playing Bile Dem Cabbage Down in that last segment, I was skipping the in strum on that first beat, so I was going 1, 2, and in fact, one advantage to playing that is that, again, just as my hand is keeping count 1, 2, 3, 4, that one beat without the in strum tells me the beginning of each measure. So you don't really have to count in your head. Your hand is doing that for you. But this leads us to our first way of altering the strum, that is to skip strums. The simplest way of skipping strum is according to the melody of the song you're playing. So, and a lot of us play like this anyway, and I know a lot of note or drone players do this. You play according to the melody or according to the words of the melody, and that tells you when you strum and when you don't. Let me demonstrate that with a really simple song. Actually, the first one my daughter played when I just showed her Do Re Mi on the Dulcimer. She started playing this. That is Hot Cross Buns. Hot Cross Buns will be helpful here because I will sometimes not need the in strum, but then for that part of the song that goes 1 a penny, 2 a penny, I'm going to have to do the in strums. So we'll see, I'm going to skip some in strums and I'm going to add some. And in fact, there's one place where I'll skip the down strum, where there's one half note there. All that my right hand was doing was a back and forth strum, except that I skipped some strums. When I got to that, I didn't do an in strum here because the note I'm singing is actually a quarter note. Hot, cross, buns, and then I skipped even an out strum because I had a half note. Then the second part of the song is a whole bunch of eighth notes, so I have to strum out and in. That's not a very satisfying song to play after all, but there are others that are I will use to demonstrate the same thing. How about if we do Shall We Gather at the River? And I'll do that because I assume most of you know the melody. I won't do the second half of the song, but it really is. But you see the same principle is going on. Every note of the song is going to fall on an out strum or an in strum, and I use those strums depending on the melody of the song. When there's no note being sung, I just didn't strum. So that's the first way of skipping beats. It's just according to the melody of the song that you're playing. There's another way of skipping beats, and that is according to a rhythm that you want to play. For some reason in the dulcimer world, everyone learns the strumming pattern that we refer to as bum diddy. All that a bum diddy strum is an out-in strum in which you're skipping the in strum on the first and third beats. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going 1, 2, 3. But there's no reason that bum diddy is the only option available to us if we want to create a rhythm where we're skipping some strums. And I would encourage you to just find a chord to play and then just practice. You might practice just at random, taking away strums whenever you feel like it. Or you might try to experiment and say play for a while where you're skipping the in on the 1 and the 3, and then for another couple of measures you're skipping the in on the 2 and the 4, or you're skipping the out. When you skip the out, you get kind of a syncopation, because then you get the ins instead. But really, you can skip strums anytime you want. So experiment and try to come up with some really cool rhythms. Those rhythms will become, it'll be easier for me to demonstrate the cool rhythms you can get when you start skipping strums when we get to some of these other techniques that I'm now going to show you. Now, so we've already begun swinging our out and in strum, and we have begun skipping strums. Another sort of very elementary way of adding rhythmic complexity to this basic strum is by accenting certain strums. The most natural thing for us to do is to accent the first and third beat. 1, 2, 3, 1. But what if we change that? What if we decided to accent the 2 and the 4? We get 1, 2, 3, 4. We're getting a slightly different rhythm, one that's heading more towards almost a reggae sound, although we'll have to start muting, and which we'll do in a moment before we can really get a full-on reggae or island rhythm going. But when you start accenting the in strums, you'll notice you get real syncopation, because those are the upbeats. So so again, there I was really I could have illustrated the point much better were I also skipping strums and muting strums, but you get the point. You can, in addition to skipping strums, you can accent any strum you want, however the rhythm seems to work. Now, both of those skipping and accenting strums work really well when you add muting into the mix. Now, you can mute your strings with either hand. And this is really an exercise in right-hand technique, but I want to show you one way of muting, one left-hand technique that, combined with this right-hand back-and-forth rhythm, creates some really cool rhythms here. One way of muting the strings is just, right, if we just strum the open instrument, you can't stop that ringing. The strings ring out for however long they ring out. But if you're fingering the strings, you can stop them from ringing just by lifting up your fingers. You lift up your fingers, you don't take your fingers off the strings, but you lift them up enough so that the strings stop vibrating. But you keep them on there so you don't get that open sound. So here we get really cool things, not only because we can stop a note, and here you can sort of make a strum staccato, just cut it off short like that. But you can also, if you don't change your right-hand technique, and I don't know that there's a name for this, but while your fingers are on those strings, if you keep strumming, you get this scratching sound. And in fact, I encourage you to work on your right-hand technique without playing left-hand at all, just by muting all the strings and practicing that basic back-and-forth strum. Now, you don't have to think about your left hand at all. But if we add that kind of scratching into the mix, we can get some really cool rhythms. So I want to play here. My right hand's just going to go back and forth without skipping any strums at all. But I'm going to create what's known in the blues and rock and roll world as the Bo Diddley rhythm, because the blues musician Bo Diddley claimed to have invented it. It's the basis of a whole bunch of old songs, as you'll notice in a moment. But I'm going to make that rhythm entirely with my left hand, just by muting the strings. And my right hand's going to continue in the back and forth strum. I know a cat named Way Out Willie, had a cool little stick room rockin' the lane. So again, obviously obviously there are other examples of how to do this, but what you saw there is my right hand wasn't varying at all. My right hand was just going back and forth like this. What created the rhythm was entirely muting the strings with my left hand. So my left hand was just going bop, 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 bop. On each bop I was pressing down on the strings, but as soon as the noise came out I lifted them up again and just rested them there. So they're touching the strings, stopping them from vibrating, but they're not actually pressing them enough to get a note out of them. Okay, so now we've gone through, we're swinging our strum, we are skipping beats, we're stressing beats, and now we're muting some beats, and we're, I guess, scratching is the term we'll use, and we're scratching. There's also a way of muting with the right hand, which I'll tell you about right now. So I just explained how to mute with the left hand, that is lifting up your fingers so that the strings can no longer vibrate. But your fingers are still on the string. There's also a way of muting with your right hand. So what if you're playing a chord that has some open strings but you want to mute it? Well, you can. Just use the side of your hand or the palm of your hand to go down on the strings. You can do it quietly, or you can actually add a little thump if you want. But here we'll do. All my right hand is doing there is the back and forth strum, but 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But on the 2 and 4 beats, instead of strumming, my hand's just going down flat against the fretboard. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Left a good job in the city, working for a man every night and day, and I never lost a minute of sleeping, worrying about the way things might have been. You will keep on turning, primary keep on burning. We were rolling. Okay, I don't need to keep going there, but you get the point. You can get some cool rhythms just by muting with your right hand. And again, you can do these sort of anytime you want. You don't have to follow the examples I'm showing you here. Now, if you imagine, when we start mixing skipping strums with stressing strums, with muting and scratching strums, once you start to add all that together, you can get really complex rhythms. And when you do find a rhythm like that, I really don't think you should stick with any one rhythm for a whole song. You get kind of one that characterizes the song, but then when you move to the bridge or when you go, you want to change it, you want to vary it up, even if there's one kind of rhythm that really defines the song. So down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines daily on the mountain top, took a trip on a sailing ship, and when I reached Jamaica I made a stop. There you can see a rhythm I'm skipping strums, I'm accenting strums, I'm doing some muting with the left hand, some muting with the right hand. So we're ready now to for you to start experimenting and mixing these things up in literally an infinite number of combinations to get some really complex rhythms in your playing. I encourage you to practice each one of these on their own, but then try to just get a feel for rhythm and see if you can put it together, and so that you start combining these things.